Good day. What I'm going to be showing you today is a PHP local file inclusion defense system, as well as a PHP directory traversal defense system. Uh, this right here is a GitHub repository that I set up to test this security function, but the goal of what you're about to see is a very simple PHP solution to prevent local file inclusion vulnerabilities in a manner that is simple to see and not super resource intensive. So this is the general repository here on GitHub. I'll put the link in the description, but just quick overview. There's two folders, right? It's just a little capture the flag type of thing, and I hope you never win, because then this code doesn't work. But we have in our sandbox, we have this easy.txt file, and then in our restricted, we have this password file, which just contains a flag. So quickly, we'll show you the code here. This script is it runs as a command line. You get your user input from the standard in. This is designed for Linux, but this security function will work outside of Linux. You have this LFI check, which does the following. It takes in a restricted web root, a constant value, absolute path already, and a user input, a dirty file name. You want to concatenate your web root with your dirty file name, so that you're saying, hey, this file exists in this web root, try to find this file. You then take I call this the loot variable. You take your loot, you put it into the real path function, which is standard since like PHP 5 or 6 or some shit like that. So you put your loot into the real path, and that gives you the abso value. Okay? You then want to check to see if both loot and abso exist. If they both don't exist, then there's just simply no file there, right? And you can return false. Otherwise, if abso is not exactly equal to loot, then you have detected a file inclusion attack and or a directory traversal attack, which they're one and the same, more or less. If you do not detect that attack, you just return the concatenated string, which we also at the same time verify is indeed an existing file, and now you have a usable security function to integrate into your web system. So with this program, or this little tiny script, your goal is to get out of the sandbox, try to access that restricted folder. So if I have this repository here, I actually did some changes here. Just renamed a function. Right. You're going to want that because it makes it make more sense. Right. Here's the script. This is the change I just made. I just changed the function name to LFI checkmate because it makes more sense that way. But nonetheless, we run the script, PHP LFI tests. Here we are. We are sandboxed in this folder, and if we type in easy.txt, if I could spell easy right, we could see we opened the easy.txt file and printed the data onto the screen, as the script is supposed to do. If we run our script again, and let's say we type in a file that doesn't exist, the file doesn't exist. Now, how do we get to the restricted folder? In a typical cybersecurity, I'm a bad guy hacker, how do I get access to that password file? Well, in this instance, we're sandboxed, and we want to go back a directory, so .. and then we want to go into this restricted, and then the file name we want. So typically we'd go .. and then the name of the folder and directory you want to go in. But with this security function, an exception is thrown, and with it a message that says local file inclusion detected. And if we look here, we see our absolute path does not, like our resolved path, does not equal the original path that was sent in, which contains this ... And this is essentially a system that anytime there's a resolve, like an automated resolving of a directory path, it will detect it as a local file inclusion, and or if you change the error name to a directory traversal vulnerability. Nonetheless, if you have a system that's not supposed to allow you to access things that are in a previous directory, this should be your silver bullet. There's just no way around it. You're saying, does this file get changed? Does this file path get resolved into something? If so, something shady is going on. I think the only way, the only way around this might be to find a vulnerability that, say, lets you make a symbolic link. But that raises a question. I don't know what happens if you put a symbolic. If symbolic links resolve, then you're detected. But I guess the way to get around the symbolic link issue is to check the file type and actually ensure that it's not a symbolic link file, and then you could just nix those off. But yeah, if anybody is able to get past this security system by not using a symbolic link, which would require the PHP injection vulnerability anyways, if you find a way in, let me know, and we'll call this a bunch of bullshit if that happens. But until then, I'm pretty sure that this is most certainly a checkmate, right? This is most certainly a checkmate function for directory traversal and local file inclusion. And before I leave, of course, just a warning to everybody, this function shall be used very deliberately. At any given time, one of the two inputs shall be static. It throws an exception on local file inclusion, returns false on no file, and on success, it returns the absolute path of the file you're trying to access. So, I hope you find this useful.